coming in the first official day of the week after quite a flurry of activity that has taken place over the last couple of days. And we're getting into a conversation this morning, one I think necessary to, and I think it's interesting because we come to a place whereby very many intrigues then can come out. And we do this morning with Martha Karua, who is the party leader of the People's Liberation Party. And she's here this morning. Good morning, Martha.
Morning, and thank you for having me at Spice.
Karibu sana. Good to see you. Good to have you. A lot of things for us to discuss this morning. But let's first of all start. Dennis takes us to Cape Verde this morning.
Yeah, Cape Verde, the locals call it Cabo Verde, Yeah. A population of 560,000 people, official language Portuguese, and it is a unitary parliamentary republic. That is the type of government they have. But they give us this proverb today: every step has its time. Every step has its time. How would you interpret that?
Indeed. It's just like the Bible saying, for everything time. And every season has its time.
It's time.
Yeah.
Every season has its time.
Straight and simple, eh?
Yeah. Indeed it is. So, I mean, we obviously are at the junction of a very interesting time in Kenya's politics, but we've just come off of burying the late Raila Odinga. He's left the stage. And I think that, and I'll be bold enough to say at this point, that you were not given ample opportunity to speak on what you feel about Raila Odinga, the man in a position where the world was watching. You were his running mate. You were his legal counsel at some point. You worked with the man for a very, very long time. And I want to get your thoughts, first of all, around what you did feel about him and what you think going forward. Let's start off there.
It was a sad and an unexpected loss, noting that the brother had just announced, yes, he's been unwell, but recovering. And, so there was hope that he would come back home. So it was a shock to everyone. But saying that I wasn't given ample time is an understatement. I wasn't given any time at all. You look at the regime, good to give him a state burial, but wrong to try to own him to the exclusion of others. Kenya, by definition, is a multi-party state. So every state function, because the state includes the people. It's not a state for leaders in office. It's a state. The Kenyan state includes everyone. Therefore, both at the Nyayo Stadium and at the Bondo funeral service, there ought to have been recognition of the opposition and official recognition. Kalonzo did mention our names when he was given an opportunity, but there ought to have been formal recognition. If time doesn't allow speeches, we went there to bury Raila. But to fail to give us to take any note, they took time to recognize members of parliament, diplomats, dignitaries there, mention everybody, but you want to sort of erase the presence of the opposition. At Nyayo Stadium, it was even worse, but we took it in our stride. We went there to bury Raila. We buried him. And now in forums like this one, we can say what we could have said. Yeah.
What would you have said?
Because looking at the proceedings, I saw a regime that was in a hurry to milk political capital from the occasion. You could see choreographed talks, especially from some of the ODM brigade, insisting about staying in the broad-based government. which was not the subject of the day. The subject of the day was the burial. You could see choreographed conversation. Those who didn't follow the script was Siaya Governor James Orengo and the Secretary General of ODM, Sifuna. Everything else was supposed to flow. Even calling the Luo Council of Elders, the CARE, to come and endorse it. It was quite bizarre in my view. And it's a desperate move because you don't overdo it. And we just watched. But one thing is certain, that there will be ripples in the political landscape following the death of Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, not just in his party, ODM, across the board on the political landscape. Whether Dr. William Ruto and his KK brigade will be able to hold on to the goodwill left behind is something to watch. But I don't think,
When you talk about the man Raila Odinga, and he's been described as an individual who never harbored any grudges, you know. You talk about his detention by former President Moi, and he got out and worked with the man, you know. You look at his differences with Kibaki, they worked together. His differences with Uhuru Kenyatta, they worked together. Even
I also disagreed with him.
And you ended up being his
running mate.
Yes. But you look at his burial at a time when it is a state funeral, as rightfully said, where 55 plus million Kenyans are part of it because our state is the people.
Yeah.
And an opportunity is not given. And at that point, one would argue that we just lost what the man stood for.
Yeah.
What does that say, even if it's milking political capital? For what purpose? The man didn't stand for what it is you're pushing for.
It just shows that the regime, which stands for the opposite of what Raila stood for, is determined to bury his legacy with him. If indeed they understood or honored the man, the funeral proceedings would have been different. There would have been recognition of the different shades of opinion. You will note Raila, even when he chose running mates, Kalonzo at times and myself, the last election, he chose people who were not in his party. So he not only stood for multipartyism, he practiced it. He didn't have to say, come to my party to be my running mate. Kalonzo remained in his party while being a running mate of Raila. I remained in my party while being his running mate. He appreciated divergent views. We stood on opposite sides a couple of times, fiercely disagreeing, like on the 2007 elections and all that. But the Democrat that he was, he recognized difference of opinion. Because if you take the 2007 for instance, I was Kibake's agent. I was in PNU. He recognizes that. Therefore, I could not have been his advocate. I was the advocate of my party, just like Governor Orengo was the advocate of his party. So he recognizes that, something many people miss. So he doesn't carry it with him. And there are other occasions. Recently, on matters NADCO, I disagreed on negotiating with William Ruto because he's not sincere. Look at NADCO, 2 years on. What came out of it? What has been implemented? I disagreed with him going into government. But we agreed to disagree, as Democrats do, but remained friends. And that's why I was able to have conversations with him, even when he was on the other side. That's why I was able to tell him in July of this year to reconsider his association with William Ruto, especially after the killings during the commemoration of the 25th of June, followed closely by more killings on the Sabasaba. That's when I called him. So we remained, in touch, each respecting the other's position, but asking him, does it bother him that this is happening?
I'm curious, Martha.
Yeah.
When you did have a conversation with him, what did he say? And I'm asking this because the last couple of days, everybody has told us about, Raila said this, Raila told me, when we were together, he said this. On this particular thing where you called a friend, somebody you'd worked with before, and said, please reconsider this thing because look at the blood that has been spilled. Reconsider this thing. What did he say?
Actually, I told him, I know in your heart of hearts, you stand for the people, and that's what you have done throughout your life. Why are you giving support to a regime doing this? Does it bother you? His words were that he was uncomfortable with what is happening. I told him I was not asking to discuss for his full response then. I just wanted to leave it there with him for him to consider. But I want to give credit to him and say that on more than one occasion, standing publicly with Dr. William Ruto in the public space, he told him to end the abductions, extrajudicial killings, and torture. He did call him out on violation of human rights. Whether that was enough is up to everybody's, the court of public opinion. But he did call him out more than once. Yeah.
What would you have said on the podium during his burial?
I would have said that we fought for multi-party democracy, which is entrenched in our constitution. And therefore, I will remain in opposition, and opposition will remain because it's sanctioned by the constitution. And therefore, the move to bring all parties under one roof is actually unconstitutional. We must have opposition. Number two, I would have said the greatest honor we can give Raila is to follow his ideals. And one is to uphold multipartyism. Two, to uphold the rights of the people. And therefore, the regime must stop violating the rights of the people. Abductions, extrajudicial killings, and torture. And must always act in the best interests of the people. I didn't need more than 90 seconds, but I'm saying it here. Yeah, because you cannot say you are honoring a person and then you continue to do the opposite. Raila's life, most of his life, he was in the trenches fighting for the people. In fact, together with his family, it was a sacrifice that involved the family. He was away from the family many times because of his stand on fighting for the rights of the people. So to honor him, it's not just about decorating him posthumously with medals. It is actually ensuring that what he stood for is what is happening. And we have it embodied in our 2010 Constitution. So let us not have empty words. That's what I would tell Dr. William Ruto, even from the Spice Room. Do what is right. Look at these bills he signed. On the morning, the news of Raila's passing came. He didn't stop for a moment of silence. He quickly signed the bills, knowing very well that they would not be discussed. What would dominate the airwaves is the death of Raila. But Kenyans are going to pick it, and it's beginning to be discussed because all these bills are oppressive. Raila was a Democrat. Ruto is returning us to the dark days. The amendments to the cyber whatever laws is meant to go after. Already they are going illegally, and the court dismisses their cases. They're going after people who comment, who post things against the government on the media, even things that are not criminal offenses, that don't make sense. Now they are tightening the law, so it will not matter that it's something you have a right to express yourself, as if they think. So we are giving the control over your thoughts and actions to the state. This is something we must resist. We must resist giving the state oppressive control on matters land. So that community land, already this regime, during its tenure, this is a grabber's paradise. Then they go ahead and make laws that allow the state to have a say. Yet the main grabbers are sitting in big offices. Dr. Ruto has been mentioned in the Dabibi land case, which is still in court. The Kilgoris land, his name featured. If they have a say in the matters that should belong to the National Land Commission, where does the ordinary Kenyan stand, the citizen stand in matters grabbing? This is the wrong regime. If at all, any share of power was on matters land was to be given to the state. But again, why would we change? We brought in a land commission because we wanted someone in the middle between the people and the state. We should really watch out. Nothing good is coming out of these bills. And if we think we have a parliament, Dr. Ruto has already swallowed parliament.
You know, when you talk about the parliament, let's just go back, first of all, from what James Orengo said, and requested the president, please, Mr. President, don't kill political parties, because the man that was being laid down to his rest fought for political freedoms in this country. You know, and there will be political consequences, whether Kenyans like it or not, whether the political class likes it or not. We've already started seeing it. The way members of ODM itself spoke at the burial of their boss. And with that then comes the question, it is feared, or the Kenyans are saying, nani atatutetea? You know, nani atatutetea, which the way forward? Because if you look at even the bills that were signed, Kenyans are asking, rightfully so, when and where was public participation? Where was this National Assembly that all of a sudden now, including those who called this man a witch at the time, are now speaking praise to this man? Do we even have a National Assembly that understands its job?
No, it's already been swallowed. We do not have a National Assembly. And I want to challenge members of the National Assembly who have proclaimed to be part of the opposition. We need to hear your voices opposing, not outside in the public rallies. You must earn your salary by talking inside Parliament, so that as we criticize KK and their brigade, do not miss Parliament when these bills are being discussed. Your voices are what will enable the people to know. I was a parliamentarian and I know, even when a single person opposes, the airtime given to Parliament, it enlightens people. And there were many occasions that we were very few voices, but people got to hear. So I'm telling members of Parliament, if you're working for the people, do not be absent when critical bills are being discussed. Do not even accept a trip abroad. I know it has some allowances. Forgo those allowances to do your duty to Parliament. I used to come back from wherever I am, whether abroad or within the country, even when I was campaigning for presidency in 2013, to be in the House when critical bills were being discussed. This is what a member of Parliament must do. We want to hear one voice, two voices, or as many as proclaim to work for the people. Otherwise, we will not be able to distinguish between you and those who are blindly following the executive. We need to hear those voices.
Martha, I have a question, and it is important because even as we look at a broader political landscape in terms of who may be running for what position, having a fundamental understanding of the processes through which governance then is practiced and entrenched is one of these things that you mention. And most times we don't make decisions not because we don't want to, but because we do not understand the process for which that decision is an outcome. When a bill is brought before Parliament, you were the member of Parliament for Gishogo constituency. When a bill is brought before Parliament, what happens within Parliament for members to begin to discuss before it gets to the point where the President signs on it?
It's read the first time. There will be no debate. The second reading is when real debate and amendments occur. The third reading is formal. So the first reading is like notice, you know, and then you get to the second reading. The process is now different since 2010 because after the first reading comes public participation so that the views of the public are taken into account. But I have an issue with public participation, the way it is executed. Members of Parliament and the committees most people manipulate the public participation. So you are calling a controlled sample of people who then, and we saw one such public participation in Bomas. I can't remember what bill it was, where Murara went and they were saying he was beaten up, roughed up.
Oh, it was towards this possible impeachment of...
no, it was
not
maybe
Gachagua?
finance or something. It was one of those things. So you see how they control. If you're going against the grain, one, you'll not be given the mic.
Okay.
And this time, it was not about the mic. It was about merely being in the room. So it excludes divergent opinion. We have to restructure public participation, look at what the law says and also practice it, and let anybody who is willing come in and not manipulate who is called to speak. Number two, public participation can also be through memoranda. We must revisit the court decision that said Parliament does not necessarily have to take on board what public participation says. I believe that's a wrong decision. They have to. If there is overwhelming rejection of a proposal by the public, whose parliament is it? Is it your parliament as leaders, or is it the people's parliament? If you're carrying on board people's views and 90% are saying no, you really must stop and rethink. If half the population is saying no, if all the memorandum you're getting are against, you got to think about that. We cannot trash public participation. If you read Article 1, it's very clear. People retain their power, their agency at all times. They can exercise it directly or through elected representatives. So when they are writing that memoranda, when they are coming to tell their representative, they are exercising their agency. And if a majority are saying no, then it is a wrong decision to say that they don't have to take it on board.
So Parliament can come back and say, from the public participation proceedings, we are seeing that the majority, or whether it is a sample size or not, because sample is representative of the larger population, isn't it? They should actually be able to come back and say, the people do not want this, let's revisit.
Let's revisit. You stand it down and you take time to understand what are the objections, to look at them, and do what is right. Actually, most cases in court on public participation and against bills by the government is because they are tone deaf to the people's view. I remember a long while ago when Huduma number came, and I was one of the lawyers doing the case on behalf of the Kenya Human Rights Commission against Huduma number. We were not against Huduma number per se. We wanted data privacy issues of data privacy to be looked at. Because when you bring the data together of so many, of the entire nation, you need to be very careful how it is managed so that there is no breach. It doesn't go to unauthorized hands. The state did not want to listen. The case went on. Eventually, they were given a go-ahead with certain modifications. Huduma number never took off. It died. But the coffers were emptied of lots of money paid to lawyers. Why wouldn't you sit down with the public when they raise an issue and discuss? We are still at that stage. We have a constitution that gives people a say, but we have officials of government and the government itself being tone deaf and taking you as a criminal when you question. Yeah.
Martha, we talk about tone deaf, and I just want to look at bills that originate from the government. And I would want to, correct me if I'm wrong, by the time these bills are coming up, they have gone through the office of the Attorney General, who's the chief advisor, a legal office for the government, right?
Yeah.
And it comes to the National Assembly, who again has battery of lawyers to just guide on what is right and what is wrong, including the processes that are there. So by the time a bill goes through this entire process and omitting a specific integral part that is public participation, looks, or rather paints a picture of, we know what the law says, but Wakenya mtadu.
Actually, it's the mutadu culture. It's impunity. The state is being run with impunity, not under the rule of law, not with adherence to the Constitution. We know what is supposed to happen, but we will not do it. We will talk about what we should do, and we will do the opposite. If you listen to Dr. William Ruto, you would think that they shared a lot in common with the late Raila Odinga. Absolutely not, because he stands for something totally different. Even the way the proceedings were conducted can tell you that. Even having choreographed group from within the ODM to only sing praises of the union between it and the state. They even forgot that they were mourning.
You think that was choreographed?
Yes, because you could see, and in between they bring the care, because you want the people to know that even the elders, the entire community has said so. Was it a ceremony to endorse the union between ODM and Dr. Ruto, or was it the burial of Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga? They could even have tried just a little bit to display the things that he stood for. Yeah, so it is... Actually, they were trying to make political capital, and that's why there was no room for divergent opinion. Those of us known for their divergent opinion were not welcome. So they decided to call only one, His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka, under the banner that it was a former vice president. But Raila was mourned by the whole and is still being mourned by the entire country. So you allow both shades of opinion. You cannot be having 20, 30. Yes, his party worked with him. We too worked with him. I was his running mate. And we've been in Parliament together for 20 years. Knew him just before entering Parliament, and his wife. I'm a family friend.
Yes.
You know, you could let other people, it doesn't even have to be me, get one or two from the opposition brigade, but it would have made sense to give me time as his running mate.
For sure.
Yes.
I mean, that goes without saying, and I think the decency of it is very loud in terms of then what could or could not have.
But what we said is that we went to bury a man we worked with, we respected, a man we considered a brother, a friend, and having done that, we left. Yeah.
That also was the platform for a lot of the beginnings of conversations about how the political tide essentially would either recede or will then come towards the beach.
Yeah.
And it is clear that perhaps there will be realliances. Raila has been titled over the last couple of days as the king of alliances. He was the one who was then able to drop any kind of animosity, any kind of hurt, and say, okay, fine, let's work together. In his death, it's also being seen as that as a result of his death, there will be more alliances.
Yeah.
Kalonzo Musyoka, who you referred to quite often already this morning, is already being said as perhaps the one to be targeted to cross over to the other side. Is that an impossibility?
I think only him can answer, but so far he's been targeted and he hasn't moved. Yeah. Yeah. So I think he needs to be given credit that he's been firm. He showed a firmness that has not been associated with him before. I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think there'll be overtures. Looking at Dr. William Ruto, reading his mind, he would want a one-party state. He would want to be king, if he could. If we were Americans, we should be holding a rally, no king. But instead, here we call it one term. So he knows the country is one term. He would want that one term to be a lifetime for him. We really must demystify power. As Kenyans, we must uphold and adhere to our constitution, and we must fight for it. The fourth president of the Republic, Uhuru Kenyatta, said so at Kasarani. Uncharacteristic. He said Kenyans will fight for their rights. I am saying those rights are in the Constitution. Let us refuse any alterations of the Constitution, especially under this KK regime that does not respect the Constitution or the rule of law. And even these proposals of a term of 7, that alters the executive. Elections were held under the banner of 5. You cannot alter the executive to 7 through a parliamentary amendment. It has to go back to the people. And for what reason would we be giving the KK regime an extra 2 years to continue being an extractive state worse than the colonial state? A regime that is ready to raid your entire payslip and leave you without enough food, without amenities, making nonsense of why you go to work every morning. A regime that will not respect your rights, that will use the guns that we have bought for our defense to kill you. Look at what happened at Kasarani. Why on earth would anybody order shooting of mourners? Mourners can be excited a little bit, but they're harmless. There's nowhere where we have been told the mourners did anything wrong. Even at Kasarani, if they were a little animated, wishing to pay their last respect to the body, they posed no danger to anyone. Look at Parliament. They climbed the gate. They did not pose any danger. Look at the airport. They went right up to the aircraft. They didn't damage it. They did not damage anything. If there was shooting at the airport, it would have been hundreds. So why shoot at Kasarani?
What happened there? We saw the CS Murkomen in an attempt to try and stop this, or at least ask questions in terms of what was going on there. And actually, came down from where he was seated to ask the men in uniform to, desist from this. Would that not have bared some kind of,
imagine,
thought?
Even the tear gassing was wrong. But in an extreme situation, then you could be, if we were talking only of tear gas, it would be a lesser evil. Although tear gas can also choke to death.
Yes, it can.
And it can cause a stampede. But shooting live bullets directly at people, because I saw bodies with gunshots in the head and in the chest. What we need is accountability. We need to know who issued that order. We need them arrested. We need to know who shot. And media has already provided images of who shot. Therefore, it's possible to know. Now, if Dr. Ruto and his government do not want blame for that shooting, we need accountability. And they still will have blame because he told people, shoot them in the leg. Once you give an order for people to be shot with the guns that should be protecting them, that kind of thing is bound to happen. And I remember telling a member of the government, a PS, and I will not name them, when we were in at the airport, and I saw them roughing people who had entered the lounge, actually punching. I saw police punch. And I went to the PS and told him, this is so wrong. You don't punch mourners. You just redirect them and tell them don't pass through here, go back. You see? And I cautioned them on use of force. I didn't know that it was going to happen a few hours later at Kasarani.
You know, when you talk about the mourners going all the way to the airport is one of the highly secured places in the country. Mourners went over the fence. They got to the aircraft. They wanted to ferry their man to where they wanted. Expressway, people don't walk on expressway, but Kenyans took advantage.
That day was a special day.
Took advantage of it. But here we are having the law, the constitution of the country that is so clear on what needs to be done. One would even argue by the time you give announcement that this will be a state function, it will be a state funeral. The law guides how that will be done, you know. The
law and common sense, which doesn't appear to be common in the people sitting on high places.
Then we have conversations on a term of 7 years, and the person pushing these again is a student of the law. You know, is a lawyer by profession who understands the law. Go to Kasarani and there is people being shot and killed, and appears as though, Martha, the law to some people in the country is a suggestion.
That is exactly the opposite of what Raila Odinga stood for. You know, the rights of the people. He fought for the constitution, so he stood for the rule of law. Why would we devalue the life of citizens that much? If you look at mature democracies, and the best example I can give is France, when there were demonstrations that turned rowdy, and they were massive, they even broke into shops in Paris, there was minimal loss of life. I don't know whether it was just one, you know, because property is not greater than life. And you can see a police force that is ready for crowd control. You need mics, that's one, because you need to address the people. Why would you arrange for people to go to Kasarani and you have no way of addressing them? How then on earth do you even intend to tell them how to queue to view the body? Communication is a must. The people took more than an hour, more than 2 hours to reach Kasarani. All the arrangements should have been made. This is a clumsy and clueless regime. That's all I can say. And which has total contempt for the constitution and the laws under it.
We're building up, and we're also coming back to a place where a lot of responsibility is then being placed on your shoulders, and we'll come to that in just a bit. But your principal partner, Rigathi Gachagua, was missing from a number of these proceedings. Many would say that the most that they saw from him was a message of condolence that he put on his social media. We don't know if he went to Karen. Likelihood that he did not.
I wouldn't know myself. And those are questions that are better asked of the man. We each mourn in different ways, and our relationship with our departed brother were on different levels for each person. So you cannot ask another person to do what person X. For instance, you can't ask him to do what I did. it is for him to know what to do. And we must also take that visiting families, even visiting with families, is not compulsory. Those who feel they must do. For me, I was in Uganda when I landed in the morning. I had just landed for the Besige case. I came back on a 10:30. I arrived in Kenya 10:30. But I still made my way to Karen because I needed to condole with Mama Ida, who is my friend, and also with the family. So it depends on the level of engagement one had with the departed. And I think it's not fair to expect that what one person does or two people do, everybody else has to do it. Yeah.
It had sharp political overtones, though, regardless of what the reason was, even if there is one or not. And that to say that you're going into a political dispensation whereby it would appear that most people in this opposition coalition went in this direction, Martha, and that he didn't. Does it
he
have
mourned
a touch?
on Twitter?
Sure, he did. But does it have a touch then on how a country then would perceive or accept you, in your opinion?
I think you leave that to the people, but you also leave it to the explanation if asked. But I'm also emphasizing we must not expect of every person. Mourning is a deeply personal thing. Yeah. So you let people express themselves the way they would. And I know that my twin brother Kalonzo came all the way from London. He interrupted his trip because I talked with him when he was there. He felt compelled to interrupt his trip, come back, join in mourning and celebrating the life of Right Honorable Raila, and then go back to his whatever the trip entailed, which was really very honorable. Sure. But then when you look at their relationship, you understand where he's coming from. Like I said, each person has a different relationship. Indeed. For Kalonzo and myself, it goes back many years. Yeah.
Like I said, going into an interesting time politically, because beyond the mourning and celebration of the life of Raila Odinga, there were many statements that were made that point directly to political directions that people will take into the future or were even starting to think or to perceive. And that the united opposition also taking a position whereby they said the things that Raila and Kalonzo Musyoka gave a bit of an opening to this, that the very tenets of the things that Raila Odinga fought for throughout his life are the things that the united opposition was going to insist that they continue doing. Is that the position?
That is the position. A luta continua. We will continue pushing for respect of the people's rights, adherence to our constitution and the rule of law, and for the state always acting in the best interests of the people. And that means stop selling our critical assets like the pipeline. Stop misusing our resources and overtaxing people to maintain you in luxury and to make you billionaires or the richest people, some of the richest people in the world. So we really have to continue fighting for the people. And I want to tell the people of Kenya, and Nyanza is in Kenya. There are many parties you can join. You are not restricted to any one party. Yeah. It is a free country, because I could see the narrative wanting to push them, like put a gate. You can't, this is where Baba left you, you can't leave. They're free just like all other Kenyans, and they have expressed freedom before. We have seen other parties like the party of Ochieng, MDG. We've seen, there was a long time ago, James Orengo, Governor Orengo was elected on Ford Kenya. Yes. And even other people. So there is an opening for people to realign. Let those who feel they want to work with Dr. William Ruto, do so. But let them not force everybody else who feels differently, because there are many who feel differently. Let them go to the formations that they feel they can work for. And especially those who feel that they share the ideals of democracy and adherence to the rule of law, respect for human rights. Let them look for partnerships where that is observed. Our doors will remain open. And yes, we will go to Nyanza, just like any other part of Kenya. Not just to open offices, but to seek members. We will go to Sugoi as well, because it's also part of Kenya. So there is no place that is going to be a no-go place. So to Dr. William Ruto, you can milk dry the occasion, but you will not be able to fool anyone. Yeah.
And as we talk about going towards the election and the formations that are there and alliances as well, one looks at the united opposition and the need for the word being united and coherent while at it, for that to work, because you look at the government side as well, they are forming alliances and coming together as well towards 2027. So let's talk about the united opposition and the need for that word united to be the center bolt that ties everything together, just as the leadership and the principles in the party. How are we going about it to ensure that the word united is not just in the formation, but we are walking that talk?
This is a work in progress, and so far we have done very well. I'm yet to hear anybody say so far so good. But as an insider, I'll tell you this: so far so good. We are doing well. We now have an official spokesperson in the person of Dr. Mukisa Kitui. And we are moving. We will very soon move to a stage where we all can sign a pledge of commitment, so that we do not only silently say these are our ideals, but they are public for scrutiny. We'll move to a stage where also we have a united manifesto, so that even though we have separate parties, we have some things in common, which then each party can tweak, but a minimum of the things that a transformed Kenya would entail. So we are moving, step by step.
Does a shaky ODM make it enticing or juicy for the united opposition to walk in and get new members, even invite members of parliament who don't know where to go?
I think there's always been movement in and out of parties, and the united opposition is open, and our individual parties remain open. And PLP, for instance, recognizes that Saul had the opportunity to become Paul. So it doesn't matter where you start, where you end is what matters. And all of us do sleep at some point and then pick up the pieces, reorganize ourselves and move on. So we must remain open, to people who want to come in. We must keep on adjusting. We also, it's a learning curve, because our socialization is from different backgrounds. So when we say these are our ideals, it's a learning curve, everybody bringing themselves within those ideals. And the ideals we embrace are what is in Article 10 of our Constitution, the values and principles of national governance.
You are the party leader, of your party, of the People's Liberation Party. You are. And had Raila Odinga won the election, you would be president today. With all other matters remaining constant, you would be president today. Do you still desire to be president of Kenya? And how will that work if you do?
One, I do not look back on what could have been. I look ahead at the possibilities ahead of me. And there's an election coming in 2027. And therefore there's a chance for me to be the Chief Executive Officer of Kenya, aka President. I've already declared, And I've already been given the go-ahead by People's Liberation Party, PLP. And we are within the united opposition. My duty is to work hard to market myself and the ideals of the People's Liberation Party so that I end up being that flag bearer. And I run to be the president of the country. So I repeat, I don't look back at what the opportunities would have been. I look ahead at the opportunities ahead.
But even as we look ahead, Martha, we have to look at today. And one thing that Kenyans struggle with today is high cost of living, right?
Yeah.
Kenyans struggle with the fact that they are paying for debt for which funds don't know what it is they did.
Yeah.
And with that, there's entire conversation on ODA's debt. And people have pronounced themselves on what they would do. What is the position from the united opposition, especially on ODA's debt?
I will talk about, I said the united opposition is now sitting down to come up with a joint document. So I can only speak for the People's Liberation Party. I'll begin by saying you cannot talk of odious debt without first talking of governance, because that's how we get there. And to stop odious debt and to address it, you need to improve governance. Everything rests on governance, and governance is guided by the rule of law. We wouldn't be where we were. If we followed the rule of law, governance would be okay. My first duty as president would be to ensure that henceforth we go according to what our laws say. There's a whole chapter on how public finances should be managed. And using that model, we then would look at the debts. First, you stop the leakages so that all the money that is collected is able to be applied to the needs. One of the needs is the debts. You pay the legitimate debts because we must have a register of debts, and we must be able to scrutinize what debts are legitimate and what are the odious debts. The odious debts, you can contest them in international courts, but the legitimate debts which may have been misapplied but came to the consolidated fund, those ones you have to continue paying. And I believe, even though we are overburdened by debts, if we stopped abuse of our resources, we'd still be able to pay and to develop. And you do not have to raise taxes. In fact, we would remove some of the unnecessary taxes. You see, like the house levy, all that. Because these are not taxes that help Kenyans. These are taxes that just help enrich cartels. So it is possible to separate legitimate debt from the odious debt. And it is possible also to stop this unbridled appetite of borrowing both externally and internally. And when you stop the internal borrowing, it means the state ceases to apply pressure on the banking industry by enticing them with high interest rates and releases that money to the economy for the businesses to borrow, which automatically brings the interest rates down. When Kibaki came in 2002, there was absolutely no money, and no government except those with surplus ever has money, because money gets applied as it comes in.
Yeah.
But because the leakages were sealed, that little money, and without foreign funds, was able to jumpstart the economy, have services completely turned around, including having free primary education, including having the hospitals start working, including the water sector reforms, which I led. So it is possible, just like in our homes, you have little money, but if you sit down and apply it to the priorities, you are able to move. Not everything will be done the first day, but quite a bit can be done by just changing the way we do things, improving governance and fighting corruption. So
there are many things, unfortunately, that just don't seem to work right.
Yeah.
And Kenyans usually, when they go to an election, or anybody for that matter in any country, would want a situation whereby the people that they're bringing in then would be able to solve these problems at the very minimum. Before you even talk about going externally and having, you want to make sure that the things at home, at least if you're leaving the children at home, they should be able to eat. And so that's what people are looking for. So we don't understand, Martha, why money that has been budgeted won't go to children for school. You don't understand why then infrastructure, for which every time you fuel a vehicle, there's money that comes out of it in terms of tax that should make sure that roads are developed and built and infrastructure is taken care of. It's misunderstood by so many why we can't have at the very basic minimum affordable access to credit and things like this. We did see the president yesterday announce yet again for people in Lower Eastern region that there will be 400,000 young people who will get access to at least 50,000 shillings to start businesses, but we can't send children to school. And when I say we can't send children to school, I know what I'm saying, because high school students who are done with the term have been sent home. Why? Schools cannot afford to keep them there anymore.
Capitation.
Because the 4,029 shillings that they should have received for third term has not been paid.
Indeed.
So when the people talk about governance, that is what they're talking about. All these other things to them are a far cry. It's the very basic. So the question that Kenyans are asking as I go to cast my vote, I want it so that there's food in my belly and a place for my children to go to school. This is what we are talking about. The person who delivers not the promise but the solution is the person that Kenyans are looking for. How do we work out these problems? How would they work out? How can you work it out?
You've actually asked a very critical question. Do not listen to what I say. Listen to watch what I do. Because as politicians, as people wanting positions, we say the same things. I will say free education, primary education and secondary. The next person will say the same. We'll sing it as a chorus. We'll talk of universal access to health. Everybody will sing it. I think we need to look at each person's background. If you have been a part of the corruption, if your name is intertwined in every corruption scandal, you are unlikely to solve the problems of Kenya. Because why is capitation not reaching and is budgeted? It means the money has been corruptly diverted to other areas. Where does Dr. William Ruto get the money that he goes promising on the roadside, like he did in Kitui? If it's not in the budget, will it drop like manna from heaven? It means here is a person who is not ready to follow any rules, any procedure. That is why you can stand and tell people about money that is not in the budget. It means you will follow nothing. And that's why capitation will not reach, because maybe that money is the one that is being given people who visit State House, whether it's teachers with 10,000 or people from the various counties with 5,000, 10,000 or whatever amounts they are getting. It means you are robbing the services to do your politics. So look at what we do and the consistency of our actions more than what we say. And lying, as President William Ruto often does, desecrates that very office. You're supposed, if you look at the leadership and integrity chapter, the behavior of a person in such an office should be exemplary. You should not lie knowingly. And his falsehoods have gone to an extent where he has been called out by the clergy, by the media, by virtually everybody in this country. I think that's where the problem is. But it is not only Dr. William Ruto. Examine each one of us. You cannot be a solution to the problems you have created. And this is something we were telling people in the 2022 elections, but they did not see it then. This is a thing you must look out for when you are electing your MCA. It's not just about the presidency. It's about the 6 seats. Your MCA and governor are your county government, and the county gives you every day-to-day service. Those of us in Nairobi know the mess Nairobi is in. So the president you elect will never come to be your county government. So start with your county government, MCA, and governor. And if you think Nairobi is too big, just start with your ward. Ensure that we get a good MCA in your ward. If everybody is doing that in their ward, we have sorted out Nairobi. They'll be able to hold the governor to account. Then let's go to the constituency. Get yourself a good constituency member of parliament, a good women representative, and a good senator. Crown it with getting yourself a good president. And then we can start the cleanup of this beloved republic of ours.
Martha,
we can start working for the people.
Martha, you speak in terms of individuals who put in office, and one sure way of knowing if someone is a solution or a problem is by looking at their history. And one would argue that these are things that are in the public limelight for us to just sit and critically look. And one would say, at the time when you are in the water ministry, we look at the decision to devolve the services so that we have the Water Services Board and how that brought water closer to the people. At the time when you were in the Justice Ministry, and at a point when decisions were made without you being involved, you say, you know what, peace, I'm out because I ought to be part of these decisions. But here we are today, where you look at what Kenyans do at the election day, and most of the time is I've been given 200, 500 bob, take my vote. And these things come to bite us later. So in terms of just speaking to Kenyans, in terms of people they put in the office, because you look at the power that an MCA has in checking the governor, and one would say at the counties, the person with the highest power is the MCA, because they will take your very resources. Extrapolate that to the National Assembly. President cannot pass a bill cannot have assign a bill into an act of parliament
before it
passed through parliament. So if we have proper members of National Assembly, the president will always play by the rules, because the National Assembly has our back. Just speak to Kenyans on the importance of interrogating each and every individual on that ballot paper.
Thank you. I would want to remind Kenyans, even when you are taking a babysitter to look after your babies, a goat herd to herd your goats, or a milk person to milk your cows, you ask them questions. But when it comes to the most important decision for the nation, for the 54 million Kenyans, which is hiring elected representatives, do you ever ask them questions, or do you take the handout and go smiling? Remember that the elected members of the county assembly, of the National Assembly, the governors, and the president are the ones who determine the trajectory of your life for the next 5 years, the sort of services you get. It's a matter of life and death if you cannot get health services. It's a matter of the life of your child if they cannot get education. The roads you use, about security, the very critical things. We cannot afford to be electing people without asking them questions or knowing something about their history. And although it is not possible to ask questions in a public rally, every leader has smaller meetings, meet the people tours. Those are the places you must ask questions. You must also demand to have town hall meetings where you can ask questions. Do not think that it's impolite to put a leader on the spot. It may be irritating, but it is your right. And because all of us come from the people, there are people you went to school with, there are people you grew up with, there are people you have worked with in the workplace. Something is known about you. Please, let us look at the background of the people who present themselves to us. Just the same way you would not employ a person to milk your cows if you learned that they took just a 500-liter bottle of milk while milking your neighbor's cow. Nevertheless, the whole gallon went to your neighbor, but just that 500 ml. If you knew about it, you would chase the person seeking the job. Please do not elect somebody who has corruptly abused your money. And Kenyans elect even people who the courts of law have actually sanctioned for theft, for corruption, for economic crimes. We are mortgaging not just our future, the future of our children and grandchildren. Let us look for leaders of integrity, value-based leaders, and leaders who have a heart for the people. People who have shown commitment. You may never have been employed, you may be a young person, but your qualities are known by the people in the village.
Indeed.
As a person who either is willing to help, a person who bends backward to lift others. So let us be very careful. That's what I would say. Yeah.
The tribal card rears its ugly head over and over again.
Yeah.
Is it something that it's time to shed, but is it something that Kenyans can shed? Is it wrong with connecting with where you're from? And at what point is it dangerous?
We are who we are. But we are Kenyans. Your tribe, you cannot shake it away. It's part of you. But it doesn't define you because you're a Kenyan. I think it is the leadership that has the word tribe in their mouth. In the last elections, Ruto is not a Kikuyu. He's not from Mount Kenya. The mountain gave him a lot of votes. The balance, almost in bulk, went to the late Right Honorable Raila Odinga. We had Kikuyu candidates like Mwaura Wahiga. He got very little. The two people who got votes throughout Kenya were Right Honorable Raila Odinga and Dr. William Ruto. Do they come from all the parts of Kenya where they got? The last elections was a defining moment to show Kenya has moved beyond the tribe. Do not return tribalism while pretending to fight it. Dr. William Ruto is the one I'm addressing. He's the one who comes so much telling people about tribalism while practicing it himself. So you will not be able to capitalize on tribe this time. Our young people have shed off that tag and they are the majority. If you see how the Gen Z organized, if you see how they are organizing, even the hashtag, we are all Kikuyu, didn't mean that they were elevating Kikuyu above others. They're saying, do not oppress any of us.
Yes.
If it's a Kikuyu today, then we are all Kikuyus. If it's a Kisii tomorrow, we are all Kisis. If it's a Kipsigis, then we are all Kipsigis. You know? It's just emphasizing our oneness. So let Dr. William Ruto and any other politician who hopes to capitalize on tribalism know that Kenyans have moved on. Yeah.
You know, it's tribalism and the cultures that we belong to are things that are recognized by the Constitution. We belong somewhere.
Yeah.
And it is using that as a political tool,
Negatively.
negatively does not make any sense. But even while at that, we look at a situation where the Gen Zs right now, we are all Kenyans, and one would hope that moving forward, the political elite stop using the tribalism as a way to get to power. And one would argue for a very long time, Raila Odinga has, if you want to get to power, just be on the other side of Raila Odinga. He's not there. Just his absence. How does that change the political chess game now?
In a very big way, because he had this hold on the people, on his supporters, unshakable hold. I don't think anybody can replicate Raila Odinga. We just have to accept that. And that's why I said there's going to be tremors in the political
space
arena. I cannot exactly predict what it's going to be, but nobody can become a Raila Odinga. That's just him. One in a million. So we have to find our balance. Everybody has to find their balance. Even those who are desperately invoking his name and even putting words in his mouth. Yet we have media tapes to show exactly what he said. They will not get far by that. People will find their balance. But what should be worrisome to us as Kenyans is that the ideals he cherished, which are the ideals in the Constitution, what we as Kenyans have fought for together and which we credit him with fighting for throughout his life, remain dear to us, and we defend it with all our might. That really is the greatest tribute.
So, as these, the doors open up, we're getting into by-elections that come in November. And many have said that this is a litmus test as to what will happen in 2027. And then being able to come and fill a constitutional requirement with a by-election. But what it also does is that it holds up a mirror for what, or even maybe a magnifying glass for what will happen in 2027. Can we use that and say this is what's going to happen? Is it testing the ground as to where people's allegiances lie?
Yes and no. Take, for instance, the Banisa seat, where Dr. Ruto and his KK brigade have been enticing the candidates on the opposite side. The candidate for DCP stepped down after being spotted in State House. And we know State House is a place of money, whether he denies or not. But his Damascus moment comes when he's in State House and he drops off from the seat. We got a candidate who then also didn't present his papers and said for personal reasons. Those personal reasons are subject to guesswork, So what is happening is that Dr. Ruto and his brigade are trying to ensure that they pass unopposed. Because when there is no candidate, you cannot measure what the voters want. It's the absence of competition that will get you there. He can do that in by-elections. He cannot be able to do that in a general election where there are more, there are thousands of candidates. So this is a litmus test in a way. If it is the united opposition, how we hold out in the seats we go to campaign for together, whether we are able to field single candidates. But on the other hand, it is not a litmus test where candidates are being enticed. So that can give the KK brigade false joy, but it will not happen. So there are two sides of it,
The house on the hill is seen as, one would argue, seems like it's the central bank of Kenya nowadays. Everyone walks in and decisions are changed. But while at that, you look at the Banisa candidate and now everything surrounding him, as well as the candidate you now say never presented their papers. And from the united opposition, then how would you handle these members in your team?
You know, once a member withdraws, they will just be scarce and not come back. You know, like ours, we just received a letter saying for personal reasons. I am sure that he will not be coming to the office soon or picking a phone call because he had started by not picking phone calls. So people don't go to say what made them do what they did. And even those known to receive money will always deny. You cannot be able to measure people's hearts. But there's always a commitment pledge people sign. It is not a guarantee. We're just saying that this happens in a by-election. It's unlikely to happen in general elections. You cannot do it on a massive scale at that time. Yeah, so we will take time to look for candidates of character, but you never can be 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
I did say that there's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. You may not know that yet. But then, you know, Kenyans are looking for that opportunity when they'll be able to operate in a space whereby there is not a constant demand on leadership to stand by their rights. That Kenyans want a space whereby they can express themselves and not be shot, jailed, or disappeared. That they can wake up in the morning and go and do a decent day's work and get something for it, send their children to school, go to a medical facility, get treated with the promise and the action that comes from government. The very basic minimum is what Kenyans are asking for. And that responsibility is placed on the shoulders of those who are fighting for a better Kenya, you, Martha Karua, being one of them. How do you take that responsibility?
I am ready for it, because it's indeed a duty to my country, a duty to myself to ensure that our country returns back to the rule of law and becomes truly our home, our castle, where we don't feel threatened, where you do not have to worry that your wallet is going to be raided by the government, not to serve you, but to enrich a few. You expect services, you pay taxes and expect services. At my age, I'm back on the race, not because I want or I need a position. I've lived without any elected position for the last 13 years and I'm fine. But I'm not fine with where our country is, where our children and grandchildren, and I keep saying my children and grandchildren are all the people of that age. We want to live a better Kenya, and we realize we have people who can help rebuild and restructure this country, and they are found in all ages. And we are looking for a partnership of people of goodwill, value-based leaders to help us reorganize our country, because nobody can do it alone. I'm ready to be that team leader. And to be a good team leader, you also have to be ready to be led.
Indeed.
Because it's not only your ideas. When I moved the water sector reforms, I was not a water person, a hydrologist or something, or a water expert. But working with the human resources under me, we were able to push for the reforms. A president of a country or a CEO of a company is not required to know everything. You are required to be able to put together the best human resources for the job and to give them room to show their best, not to micromanage.
Not to micromanage.
And, Martha, it is said that the qualities of a leader is defined by how he or she listens to his or her people. And we live at a time when the only way a leader would listen to the people has even been defined through public participation in the country. But here we are today finding ourselves, the views of the people are not heard. Just how critical is it then for any leader who wants to win, who wants to succeed in the country, to listen to the people who gave them the mandate to lead?
I think it's of absolute importance. And listening to the people is also listening to the feedback. Mm-hmm. So if people say they do not want you, however well you think you are doing, stop telling us you have 5 years. Leadership is not a title deed. You can be fired. So if people fire you, listen to them. If people do not want the path you are taking them, listen and change the track. And we have seen people do that. We keep on talking of developed democracies. South Africa is one such democracy where President Thabo Mbeki gave way to the will of his party members, although he hadn't done really nothing wrong. Yeah, those who look back think he was on the right trajectory. But when his party de-whipped him, he gave up the seat. Now here, what we hear Dr. Ruto telling us and all the elected leaders is that they have 5 years. I just want to say leadership that listens to the people, listens on critical issues affecting them. If the people say this, we do not want these taxes, reverse it. Convince them why it is necessary. Act in the best interests of the people. Do not enrich yourself at the expense of the people. What is happening, this government has created millionaires and billionaires, but nothing for the people. You cannot sustain a government on bribery, on lies only, on make-believe. It is by actions. And I think that's what the people of Kenya are looking for. But the people of Kenya, we have to help ourselves by choosing wisely when the chance presents itself and discussing candidates and asking them questions. Do not spare anyone. Do not spare me. Do not spare my colleagues. Indeed. Ask all the questions and let us listen to each other. We will answer and you will ask and keep on asking if you're not satisfied. That's the only way.
Our last question, let's go regionally. You were on your way for representation for Kizza Besigye when you heard of the news of Raila Odinga's death and you came back. At some point, you were putting hands together in support of Tundu Lissu, who, interestingly enough, stood in the docks that day and told people, no, go and bury Raila Odinga. These two gentlemen in the struggle in their countries, very much like what Raila Odinga went through here in Kenya. And you are in support of those two men, speaking against governments who are insisting on keeping men who fight for a better country behind bars. Tanzania goes to the elections on the 29th. In a few months, Uganda goes to the election. These two gentlemen pose a possible threat to the incumbents, as it were. And you're in support of human rights. What would be your words be, or what are your thoughts about these situations that we see playing out in other countries as well?
I weep for East Africa. Mama Samia Suluhu is going to elections against herself, or her shadow, if you like, because her main opponent is Tundu Lissu, who has been imprisoned for calling out for reforms. Treason, the offense of treason. Calling for reforms is not treason. His party has been banned from participating in the elections. There is a presidential candidate from ACT Wazalendo, but that candidate was a member of CCM, a parliamentarian of CCM. He didn't get the ticket to defend his seat. He crossed over to ACT, became its presidential candidate. So that means Samia is against CCM, against herself. You look at, and people are disappearing in Tanzania. People like Mudude Nyagali, people like Pole Pole, Ambassador Pole Pole, and many, many others. There are those who have been killed. Abductions, torture, killings are the order of the day in today's Tanzania, which is not the Tanzania of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. You go to Uganda, Dr. Kizza Besigye, abducted from Kenya with the participation of the Kenyan authorities. There's no way Ugandan military can come to Nairobi, abduct a person on their own. They were aided and abetted by Kenyan security forces. There were 8 people, and we believe the 4 who were left behind were Kenyans. The 4 who took them out were Ugandan military officers. And this is not the first abduction. 36 members of his party had been abducted in Kisumu last, in July of last year. He was abducted in November. In Uganda, there are disappearances, enforced disappearances. There is torture, admittedly by the army, because sometimes the CDF posts those posts. And today, Bob Jage and Nicholas Oyo are almost a month since they were abducted in Uganda. Dr. William Ruto is the current head of the East African community of the Jumuiya. Not a protest note from Kenya, not a word. It's as though they are the ones encouraging foreign governments to mistreat their nationals. I believe that they colluded with Tanzania when they deported us. The 1 hour it took the immigration officials to come and tell us we will not allow you in, I believe they were consulting with Kenya. And it must have been Kenya that got Kenya Airways to alter our tickets without payment because we refused to pay any alteration fees. So they helped Tanzania to deport us. They thought they were fighting us as opposition figures. But later on, the Tanzanian regime fought Kenyan business people. So any act you do has ripples. Today, I'm in Uganda. I'm going to Uganda, not today, but I keep going there to defend Kizza Besigye. It's a form of citizens' pushback on these 3 countries that seem to be cooperating to oppress their people. And it's a message to them that when dictators come together to oppress the people will come together to push back. And I'm so glad that when John Heche, the deputy of Tundu Lissu, was detained at the Isebania border, Tanzanian and Kenyan youth went to free him. It's a message that the people are beginning to gather together. The days of dictatorship are numbered. I saw in Kitui yesterday, President Jumaye Faye of Senegal come as a visitor. And I said how ironical, because we have an organization I lead. It's called Pan-African Progressive Leaders Solidarity Network. Through this organization, we went to Senegal when Jumaye Faye and Sonko were in jail. Remember, Sonko was the leader of PASTEF. Jumaye Faye was his secretary general. At a time, the president of Senegal, then Macky Sall, was refusing to have the elections that December. We went there to push back. And we had sittings with NGOs, religious leaders. We held a press conference. We visited the African Commission on Human and People's Rights in Arusha. We pushed, and there was a resolution against Senegal. We talked to staffers of Congress in America. And all that pressure resulted in pushing Senegal to have elections. They didn't have them in December as scheduled, but they had them in January of 2024. And that's how Jumaye Faye came to be president. Sonko had already been removed from the register of voters. It's so ironical that Jumaye Faye was standing with a dictator in the making in the form of Dr. William Ruto, a person who is doing exactly what Macky Sall did to him. I don't know whether he has a good brief on that. And I am saying, let us stand together as the people of Africa, and especially of East Africa, to push back and to retain our ideals of the Jumuiya, of countries under the rule of law, countries respecting both domestic, regional, and international law. The African Charter on Human and People's Rights, on which the African Commission on Human and People's Rights is modeled, stands for all these rights. Our constitutions. We must push back. Nobody will do it for us. Our freedom fighters freed us from colonialism. We must free ourselves from new colonialism being perpetuated by our fellow African leaders. Yeah.
Martha Karua, she's the party leader of the People's Liberation Party. She's been here with us this morning, and I know that you have another engagement that you must go to. But thank you for being here with us this morning. Many things that we've been able to cover. Yeah. And take with you that responsibility. It sits on your shoulders. Kenyans have given it to you.
Asante sana, like I said, I'm ready, able, and willing to serve. And I've offered myself to run as president of this country. I will go explaining to the people, and I hope I'll find favor to serve.
Asante sana.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.